For those who don't know, Denis Villeneuve is undoubtedly one of cinema's modern-day masters. His unique style mixing impeccable technical proficiency, awe-inspiring visuals, and complex narratives that deal with heavy, thought-provoking themes. The French-Canadian has exactly 10 films to his name, 4 in French and 6 in English. And now, after watching his latest epic in theaters, I decided it's as perfect a time as any to rank his films from my least favorite to my most favorite. So, let's go! Number 10. Maelstrom. Villeneuve's sophomore effort, this is the one movie in his filmography that completely rubbed me the wrong way. I mean, this movie is weird. It's not that I don't like weird films, but this one is really weird and uncomfortable. The narrator of the film is a bloody, gutted fish? What? And the first thing we see the main character do is have an abortion? What? Yeah, something tells me this will not be an enjoyable experience for me. Putting all the weirdness aside, I just didn't get into it. I didn't relate with the main character at all. Throughout the majority of the film, she just wanders around, lives her life, feels sorry for herself and whatnot. She accidentally kills someone, but that's pretty much all there is to the story. The film is very unpleasant, but because the main character is so boring, it doesn't feel earned. There's a lot of pretentious dialogue about sex, a bunch of text pops up on the screen every now and then for no reason, we keep cutting away to this shot of rushing water, it's all very tedious. The film is also Villeneuve's most visually bland, by far. The film is shot primarily in close-ups, and while it keeps the focus on the characters, it means the film lacks in any visual interest. The story also has some time jumps that were just unnecessary and made the film more convoluted than it needed to be. Now, it's not all bad. The last 30 minutes do have a twist that makes the plot slightly more interesting, but it's not enough to save this film. A definite skip, hands down my least favorite Denis Villeneuve film. But hey, it can only get better from here. Number 9. August 32nd on Earth. This is Denis' directorial debut, and it's okay. It starts intriguingly enough. A woman survives a car crash and she decides to quit her job and ask her best friend to have a baby with her so she can raise him by herself. You know, normal stuff like that. What she doesn't know is that her best friend is secretly in love with her, which complicates matters. For some strange, quirky reason, they decide to go to the Great Salt Lake Desert in order to conceive? There's really no justification for this, but at least the location lends itself well to the visuals. The cinematography is pretty good in this film. The characters are also pretty likable, and I was invested. They talk a lot about existentialism, which is an interesting subject, albeit not very romantic. I won't tell you what happens, but just know that there are a few twists and turns here and there. What really brings the movie down for me is the generally mellow tone of everything, and also the ending. It felt very contrived. Overall, the movie was meh. Definitely not the best, but not the worst. A solid debut, but he'll go on to make much, much better works. Number 8. Polytechnique. After his first 2 films, Villeneuve took a lengthy 9-year break from directing feature-length films, and he returned in 2009 with Polytechnique, a dramatization of the Montreal massacre that occurred in 1989, where a crazy person just decided to shoot up an engineering school because he hates feminists or some crap. This film goes to show that the difference between a moderate and an extremist isn't necessarily your ideas, but how you implement them in real life. I mean, I don't like feminism either, buddy, but that doesn't mean I'm gonna start shooting people, you lunatic! On a technical level, this film is a marked improvement over his previous 2 films. It's kinda like the Canadian version of Elephant. It's well shot, the score is effective, and the acting is really good. With that being said though, there's still a pretty large gap between this movie and the 7 that followed it. It's very short, but it still manages to be a very unpleasant and disturbing experience, one that I personally didn't enjoy that much. The senseless violence made me sick to my stomach, which is a credit to the film, I guess, that's what it was aiming for, but I don't know. There are some very disturbing films out there that I find myself enjoying and rewatching multiple times, and there are some that I don't. This is one of those that I don't. Before I continue, if you're still here and you're enjoying the video, why not hit the like button and subscribe to my channel? It'll help me out and I really appreciate it. Now, if there's a film from here on out that you think is placed too low, just know that in my opinion, the top 7 are all fantastic, and I recommend that you watch all of them. With that being said though, number 7, with an asterisk, Dune. Part 1. There is a caveat to this placement. This film should be higher. The only reason it's not is that it's only half a movie. The trailers lied to us. This isn't Dune. This is Dune Part 1. Now, when the sequel does arrive, I'll judge the film like I judge Kill Bill, 2 volumes that I view as one big movie. But until that day comes, I can't wholeheartedly place the film higher than 7. I mean, it doesn't have an ending, for crying out loud. What is present is amazing, but it's simply not enough. However, now that Dune Part 2 is officially announced, I can relax and focus more on the positives of the first installment rather than the disappointment of realizing that the story is not yet complete. Dune Part 1 is a technical marvel and a visual masterpiece. This is one of the best looking movies I've ever seen in my life, and this is not an exaggeration. This film is made for the biggest screen possible with the best sound system possible, so get your butts to the movie theater. Everything is so grand and awe-inspiring, from the bombastic score and the large-scale action sequences all the way to the gigantic spaceships and sandworms. I haven't seen a movie this epic since Lord of the Rings. I loved the characters, I loved the lore, I loved the world building, I loved almost everything about this film. It's just a shame that it's only the beginning of a story, but the beginning is so gripping and sets up so much that I simply have to see where it'll go. So go watch it, knowing that it's half a story, and join me as we impatiently await the continuation. I'm certain that after Dune Part 2 is released, I'll rank it much higher than this. Number 6. Sicario. A terrific action thriller about an FBI agent that joins a team of special forces in an attempt to hunt down the leader of a Mexican drug cartel, only to find out that her side isn't as squeaky clean as she would have hoped. What's more important, the means or the ends? The answer is never black and white. This film is very brutal and extremely tense, but it's helped by having a large cast of very likable characters. Emily Blunt is great in the film. Let's just say that she's not your typical modern-day strong female character. She's got a lot of layers and a lot of depth, and she's written really well. All the actors do an excellent job, especially Josh Brolin and Benicio del Toro. The film is expertly shot, and the score is great as well, really adds to the atmosphere of the whole ordeal. The action sequences are really well crafted, especially the one on the highway, which is probably the best scene in the film. But there aren't a lot of these sequences. The vast majority of the film consists of character moments, with a few moments of very tense action sprinkled in. I personally don't have an issue with that, just wanted to let you all know that this isn't your traditional action film, it's much more of a thinking person's movie. I remember seeing the movie in theaters with my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time, and there were a bunch of people sitting next to us who were pissed off because they expected to see Fast and Furious or something. Good times. Anyway, it's a great film, and it's at number 6. Number 5. Enemy. By far Denis Villeneuve's most experimental film. At least, his most experimental film that's actually good. The story, in a nutshell, is about a history professor who finds out that he has a doppelganger, and after meeting him, things go off the rails. Of course, this is just the surface level. The film is very heavy on symbolism and metaphorical storytelling, which is understandably not everyone's cup of tea. But I rather enjoyed it. I like movies like this. They're like a puzzle that you need to piece together, and sometimes you don't get all the answers. There are a bunch of analysis videos on YouTube that go deeper into the hidden meanings of everything, but I'm not gonna go into it here. All I'll say is that the film has a unique look, a unique story, and it's told in a unique way. Jake Gyllenhaal, naturally, plays 2 characters in the film, and he does a really good job with both. I also really liked Sarah Gadon's character. She's understandably very confused about there being a stranger that looks exactly like her husband, and I felt for her. I can't really get too much into the film without spoiling it, so all in all, I'll say that Enemy is a very intriguing film that I recommend you check out. Give it a try. Oh, and I guess I should say there are a lot of spiders in the movie. Lots and lots of spiders. But don't worry, it all means something, I promise. Number 4. Incendie. Holy crap, this film is depressing. It's about a brother and a sister whose mother passed away, and in her will, she instructs each of them to deliver a letter, one to their father, whom they believed to be long dead, and one to their long-lost brother, whom they didn't even know existed. And in their quest to locate and discover who these people are, they learn about their mother's dark and horrifying life story. This movie will break your soul. It deals with very troubling and very difficult subject matters like war, massacres, torture, and rape. Heavy themes to say the least, but the film is first and foremost a story about uncovering the roots of a tragic past. Tragic isn't even a word, it's a real horror story what their mother went through. The scene at the bus and the scene at the prison are especially brutal. Not an easy watch at all, but by far the most rewarding of his French films. This movie takes you on a journey. You just sit there and take it all in, all the way up to the utterly shocking ending. It's a very emotional experience, but somehow through all the darkness, the movie finds a way to deliver a message of hope, which is ultimately why I think this film is worth your time. So, if you think you have the stomach for it, definitely give this one a watch. It's an experience you'll never forget. Even if you'll probably never want to watch it again afterwards. Number 3. Blade Runner 2049. The original Blade Runner is one of my all-time favorite films, so I was skeptical when I heard that there was going to be a sequel. But when I heard that Denis Villeneuve was going to direct, I started getting hyped, and sure enough, Blade Runner 2049 is a great movie. Although it has its flaws. For starters, the villains are really underwhelming. Jared Leto is barely in it, and he doesn't have much screen presence when he does appear. His motivations are bland and uninteresting, but the worst thing about him is that he doesn't really do anything in the film. Also, the film itself feels a bit too robotic for me. Now, I know, it's a movie about replicants, which are a type of robot, so isn't that the point? Well, the original Blade Runner was also about replicants, but it still managed to convey a level of pure humanity that I barely felt in the sequel. And finally, the ending felt a bit anticlimactic, nothing compared to the grand ending of the original. So why is this film ranked so high? Simply put, I just love spending time in the world. This movie is a feast for the eyes. The visuals are incredible and the cinematography is gorgeous. It also has a beautiful score that harkens back to the original. And while Ryan Gosling's character was likable enough, his holographic girlfriend, Joy, is a very endearing and emotional character. It's funny how in these movies the characters that are least human act the most human. And of course, seeing Harrison Ford reprise his role as Deckard was so cool, with his awesome gun and everything. It's not as good as the original, I never expected it to be, but it serves as a nice continuation, and I enjoyed seeing the world expand and the exploration of the extended themes. Even though the film never reached a point where it feels like it was necessary, I'm still really glad that it exists. If you love the original Blade Runner like I do, then there is plenty of enjoyment to be found in Blade Runner 2049. Number 2. Prisoners. This is an interesting one, because on the surface, nothing really stands out about Prisoners. Just your run-of-the-mill thriller about a child kidnapping. We've seen a bunch of these films before. However, after watching the film, it's apparent how much a story can be elevated by flawless execution. The people who made this film did a superb job. It starts with the director, of course, and Denis Villeneuve emphasizes all the right things. You really feel the gravity of the situation, the grief, the despair. Everything is geared towards realism, which is appropriate because stories like this, unfortunately, actually happen. The film is also great at building tension. When a scene starts, you never know if it's going to be a quiet scene or a horrifying scene, which keeps you on edge throughout. Thematically, Prisoners showcases some of the best explorations of evil I've ever seen in a movie. Pure evil. More than anything, the film shows how evil can corrupt the hearts of even the strongest and sturdiest individuals. Hugh Jackman delivers one of the best performances in his career. I loved his character, and even though he does some pretty unforgivable things, you relate to him completely. He wants to save his daughter, for Christ's sake. Jake Gyllenhaal also gives an excellent, striking yet nuanced performance as Detective Loki, who's called to solve the missing girls case. All the performances across the board are fantastic. The film has a very bleak tone. You never actually feel like it's gonna have a happy ending, but you push through because you want to see what happens anyway. A I'm not gonna spoil anything, but let's just say that the ending is very strong. This film should get more recognition. It's easily Villeneuve's most accessible film, so there's really no excuse. Prisoners is just amazing, a great achievement for the director. But it's just shy of being his magnum opus. And my favorite Denis Villeneuve film is Arrival. This film is a modern classic, a science fiction masterpiece, and a movie that'll be talked about for years to come, I guarantee it. It's a fresh and unique take on the alien invasion genre, and it works on multiple levels, not just as an interesting first contact movie, but as something much deeper as well. Aliens land on Earth, and the military recruits a linguist, played by Amy Adams, in an attempt to translate the aliens' cryptic language in order to understand what they're doing here. And let's just say, the film goes in several unexpected directions that leave you completely floored by the end. This movie is just gorgeous. The first time we see the UFO, it's breathtaking. It's one of those pure, unforgettable cinematic moments. It sparks the imagination and reminds you what great filmmaking is capable of. The aliens themselves are really cool. Everything about their design, from their look, their spaceships, and their language, is mesmerizing and original. Language is the main theme of the film, and it explores it wonderfully. This movie demonstrates how language is what glues our civilization together, but also how easily it can divide and destroy us. Language is our greatest tool, but also our greatest weapon. The second thing the film explores is memories, and it's explored in very intriguing and captivating ways that I simply do not want to spoil. But the main reason why this film is number one is that underneath the cool aliens, the awesome visuals, and the thought-provoking themes, the movie tells a heart-wrenching yet beautiful story that celebrates life and how precious and valuable it is. Arrival is the complete package. The storytelling and the technical proficiency are outstanding, and it makes you think and feel in equal measure. That, and so much more, is why Arrival is my favorite Denis Villeneuve film to date. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked this video, please subscribe to the channel and ring the bell so you don't miss another upload. Check out my other ranking videos right here. Thanks again, and have a good one.